And we're on. Hello, Krish. It's such an honor to have you on our Quebec radio show. I spoil it, but for people that maybe didn't recognize you, in which band are you playing right now? And well, yeah, welcome, man.
Right now, currently, I'm in a new band that I started called Fire Sale. It's with Matt Riddle from No Use for a Name. He used to also be in Face to Face and Pulley and 22 Jacks. And then Tim MacMiller, who's from Your Great Country. He's in Protest the Hero. He plays piano and guitar with me in the band. And Pedro Aida from he's in a band called Anberetta down in Richmond, Virginia, and he's also in a really good band called Shot Clock. And then my buddy Paul Williams, who's from Indiana, just like me, he's in a band called Making Enemies, and they're great. You gotta check them out.
Yeah, it's kind of the perfect lineup. How you guys came together and how the ID for the band came up.
Well, I've been playing music my whole life. I've been in some bands that some of your listeners might know. I was in the Ataris for a while. I was in a band called Brazil that was on Fearless Records. I was in a band called Underminded that was on Kung Fu. Like my whole life, I've toured and been around the underground kind of punk, hardcore, whatever you want to call it, scene. And I got married, had some children, was kind of away from that for a while, and I started a podcast because I missed talking to people about music. It's called That One Time on Tour. And through that, I reconnected with some old friends, made some new friends. And when the pandemic started, I started writing music, which I hadn't done in over a decade. And I let friends hear it. And they just happened to be friends I really admired and was inspired by what they had done in their past. And they all said they wanted to be in a band with me. And that's how you get Fire Sale, man. Born out of the pandemic. That's what it was, kind of born out of necessity.
It's rad because when it's in your blood, it's always came back to you, and I'm happy that you're still doing it. And podcast the connection. It's a rad story because it's so true. With the radio show, I met a lot of people, and you got those crazy stories, and you've been on the road, so sharing that, it really stimulating. And like you said, you connect with musicians that want to have new project. I think it was the same with Matt for many years. He did a little project here and there, but mostly it was not really active for many years. So, having you back in the scene, you two and the others, it's crazy. It's really cool. And it sounds amazing.
Thank you so much, man. The thing with Matt, which was kind of cool, like everyone else had signed on. Like Timmy's a good buddy of mine. Pedro's a good friend of mine. We used a session guy on the 7-inch, the two singles before we got Paul in the band. We used a session drummer that we knew. But with Matt, we needed a bass player and I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to just play bass on the record. And he posted a video where he had played bass on like a cover song, like one of those quarantine covers. And so then I knew he had the ability to record it at his house. So that night I sent him the song and I'm like, hey man, I don't know if you're busy. I haven't talked to you for a while, but if you want to play bass on my song, you totally can. And he got back to me, and then we got the name for the band, and he said he wanted to be a full member. And it's kind of cool because everybody has other stuff going on, but it's a real band. Like we plan on playing shows. We've got offers for different countries and different places around the country. And it's a real band. It's just weird that, it's just weird how it started, but I think it's a good story.
Yeah, it is. And things gonna go really fast for you guys because we see the pandemic slowing down around the world. Show are there again. People are getting crazy. It's just we're living again, and I think it was the right time and right place for a band like you guys. And there's a huge hole in the scene right now because we need new headliner. We need new generation of band. It was for many years the same band. And that was a problem with the festival. But now there's so many bands out there that are ready to, be major part of the scene. And I think that, with the song and everything is in place.
Well, I tell you, it's really cool to talk to you because I have a special place in my heart for Canada. And every band I've ever been in, Canada's been like the best market we've ever played. And people, I don't know what it is, but people in Canada seem to have this like passion for punk music. that I don't see a lot of other places, maybe in Japan and some places like that. But yeah, every band I've ever been in, everywhere I've ever played, they the Canadians are some of my favorite people in the world to play for. And I mean, you're in Montreal, is that what you said?
Quebec City. We're
Quebec
three
City.
hours ahead from Montreal.
I have not been to Quebec City since 2004 or 6. I don't
Oh,
remember. I played Warp Tour with that band Brazil, and
yeah.
I just remember all the amazing graffiti everywhere.
Yeah, you saw like it was the Lower Town. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
beautiful. There the Ashton Dares and then the Graph and everything. And Quebec is really European if you compare to Montreal. Montreal is really punk rock. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, I mean,
uh,
even like Sherbrooke and Rimouski and places. I mean, I've been all over Quebec, and it is definitely one of the few places in North America that feels like you're in a European like country. You know what I mean?
yeah, really, the vibe and everything. But
Yeah.
it's really rad. I was there actually at that Warp Tour that you're talking about because there was a Warp Tour in 1998, but then they skipped Quebec to go directly to Montreal. So for many years we didn't have the Warp Tour, but in 2004 and 2005 we got the Warp Tour back, and I remember it was just near the arena where
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Nordic used to play.
I just remember I got to be close with the Alexis on Fire guys on that tour, and we were always like headlining over them. But then when we got to Canada, they were on the main stage. So yeah, it was way different once we got to Canada. You know?
Yeah. They really get big in Canada quickly.
Yeah.
Like they took over the world, but they it was really big quick. After the first record, everything was pretty fast for them. But
Well,
it's great.
I remember like I've always been a fan of them. Before I knew them, I went to see them play here in Indiana on
Uh,
on the Watch Out tour, and they headlined a club, and there was maybe 70 people there. And then I went up and saw them in Toronto, and it was like sold out like 3,000 people. I'm like, what the hell is this, man? It's
was
crazy.
it was it the year where Guttermouth couldn't make it to Canada, and they put the Vandals, and they didn't say a thing to anybody, and there was like the merch, the Vandal merch, and the guys were there like, go see us, go catch us, and like, you fucking kidding me? You guys are on the bill. It's nobody has said that.
I think I remember that. Yeah, man, that's awesome. The Guttermouth guys are good dudes. So are the Vandals guys. But I think I'd be a little upset if I wanted to watch Guttermouth and I got the Vandals instead. I don't know.
People were pretty, happy. It
Yeah.
happened a couple of times. They got actually Guttermouth got a ban in Canada for a show, I think in Saskatoon, where Mark got naked and got banned for
Sounds like Guttermouth. Yeah.
yeah for 6 years or 7 years. But they came back and everything was fine. Mark fell down from the stage, I think, 10 times since then in Quebec shows.
I mean, I love the entire country, but I've spent a lot of really, you had a lot of really good times in Quebec. So I just thank you so much for your support, man, and for having me on today.
That's an honor, my friend. You've been involved in a lot of project, and it's all band that I used to listen a lot, and it's cool to have you because you can share a lot of story about the scene. And with the podcast, that's the cool thing. I
Yeah.
think it's a great idea. I've been doing interview for many years, but doing those kind of interview really directly with the anecdote, the craziness of the tour and surreal moments, or just meeting people that you never thought meeting in your life, and
Yeah.
and tell you that they love what you're doing, and it's crazy on the road.
Well, I tell you, that's kind of the cool thing about the podcast because I've pretty much had everybody on my bucket list that I wanted to interview on. Like I just had Fat Mike on a few months back, Chris from Propaganda. Like I've had people I mean, I had Jay from Bad Religion. I mean, I've had people on my show that, yes, I've met and we've ran in the same circles, but I'm like a 14-year-old kid. Like you changed my life, and and the cool thing about the podcast is making those connections and getting to talk to people that inspired me and influenced me. And someone like Matt Riddle, who, we're buddies, but he's in my top like 3 bass players of all time. So it's
Very
cool. It's cool that we're friends, but it still blows my mind, and it's not lost on me that one of my favorite bass players is in the band I'm in. It kind of blows me away a little bit.
That's rad because it's like if a director got a movie to do and is fans of it,
Yeah.
being fans of people that you play with, it's a kind of important thing with the chemistry and the mutual respect you got, and that's where the magic happened. And I think it's the case. From what I heard, it's really a natural. You guys want to have fun, no pressure, nobody
Yeah.
expecting anything. So I think it's the perfect combination for creating something brand new, original, and kick-ass, and that's what I love about it. It's original.
There's been a lot of people since the second single came out the other day. It's called Mercy Brown. The first single is called Dark Hearts. But the consensus from people like posting on our Facebook and saying stuff to us and emailing us is that there's enough nostalgia so they kind of remember the 90s skate punk stuff, but then it's got very modern production on it,
Yeah.
and it's got a little bit of metal in there. And then Pedro, our singer, kind of has a more of a poppy voice. So it's, I mean, I thought from day one, but I mean, I'm in the band, I'm writing the songs. I didn't, my opinion doesn't really matter, like I liked it. I thought it was cool. But the consensus so far has been that people really enjoy it, and they have this nostalgia when they listen to it, but then it fits with what's going on today as well. And that, I could sit back and say we meant for that to happen, but we didn't. We just wrote what we wrote, and it came out that way. I mean, we've got me and the rest of the guys are like in our late 30s, early 40s, and then Matt's in his 50s. So it's kind of a wide swath of like ages in the band. But we all have one thing in common, and that's our love for like punk rock. And that's kind of where it comes from.
Yeah, and that's where you see that there's no age, and that's
Yeah.
the beautiful thing. There are so many people from the first wave of punk rock that's still around. Like you, I did many interview with those guys, and they're rad legion, and they're stick to that thing. It keep us young. It keep us, it keep us doing what those passion you got inside, and those crazy idea that you think it's impossible. It just gets you driving to do it, and
Yeah.
just don't think and do it. And I think that's the case with the band. You go straight for it, and that's it. Let's see what's happened after. But the reaction is amazing. I read the comments and everything, and it's such a positive vibe, and that's what we need right now. And I love, like you said, the originality, the combination of everyone in the band, and not really put a direction. We're gonna
Yeah.
sound like skate punk from the 90s or anything. Like you said, there's a little bit of nostalgia, but it's different. And that's what I'm looking for. Like a lot of people, skate punk is amazing. There's so many things you can do now with it, but to recreate the same thing over and over again, there's no point. I think.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm looking at this piece of paper, my little erase board that's got all the songs for the full length that we're working on. It's like right in front of me. And there's 15 songs on there, and literally we have songs that could fit with Blink 182 songs. We have songs that could fit with old Metallica songs. I mean, it's kind of across the board. Like we're just a rock band with a lot of different influences. And from day one, when we decided to be a band and not just like this project during the pandemic, I want everybody to have equal say in everything. Like so far, it's been me sending like the skeleton of a song to everybody, and then they record their parts, and Pedro writes the lyrics, and Matt puts his bass on it. But I love the fact that like we don't have veto power. Like if Matt sends me something back and I don't think it's good, it's like, well, that's what Matt put on it. And if Pedro sends me back like his vocals and there's a part that I'm not sure of, I'm like, well, he's the singer. That's what he did. So nobody like, yes, I'm sort of writing like the main chord progressions and the arrangement or whatever, but everyone has equal say, and no one can really veto anything that happens because we want it to be a band and not like a dictatorship like most bands are.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, when you're young and you start a band, you don't know a shit. So
Yeah.
everything is new, and, dealing with those, because it's tough. There's a lot of compromise, like you said, and kind of, somebody want to take over the power of the band and everything. So you're young, and dealing with that, it's not like dealing with that at our age. I'm
Yeah.
39. I've got kids. The vision of the world is pretty different, and like
Yeah.
you said, I'm sure Matt, it's the same. He been involved in No Use touring nonstop. He know the scenes and everything. I'm sure at that point you want to cut the bullshit and just have the fun, the fun part of it,
Well,
because you've done
none
your
of
part.
none of us think that this is going to be like how we make a living. Because I mean, we all have jobs and kids, and we've all like, Tim's band was up for 2 Junos last year. I mean, like he he doesn't need to do this band, you know what I mean? Like none of us really need to do it, but that was where it kind of came from. We want to take it seriously and we want it to be a real thing, but we don't want any stress. We don't want anybody, I mean, if you've been in a band before, it's like a marriage. You have to compromise and you have to, kind of bend to other people's stuff once in a while. In this band, we just said, let's just write a bunch of songs and see what happens and have fun. And we did that, and a bunch of labels were interested, which was kind of crazy. And we went with Spam Records out of Austria, and it's going really, really well. And who knows what the future holds? I know we're going to put out a full length record, and after that, I have no idea. But we're just having a good time, and we don't want any stress, no drama. We just want to play music with our friends, and hopefully people enjoy it. But if they don't, it's cool.
Yeah, yeah, and like I think, like the way you create music, things gonna come naturally, and that's cool
Yeah.
with that, because and that's the cool thing. You spoke about Tim. I'm a huge fan of Protest the Hero.
Heck yeah.
In Canada,
Yeah.
we've been following them since day one, and I play them a lot on the show. And actually, I love the way they play their metal. It's so different than everybody, and Tim is such a character too. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's the personality of all of you that make it a lot interesting, because that's gonna be the thing. I can't wait to see you live. And I know, those songs are meant to be played live.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the funny thing, you bring up Tim, the only negative comments we've had whatsoever have come from protest fans. But and it's funny. The one guy was like, "Tim deserves so much better than this," and I went on there and I said, "Hey man, if you don't like it, that's cool, but like Tim grew up listening to punk rock. Like
Yeah.
all those guys did. So when I hit Tim up to see if he wanted to do it, he's like, I've always wanted to be in like a punk band, like a skate punk, like this kind of band. So like I think it's funny because Tim and Rhodey and all those guys, I mean, Rhodey's favorite band is Propaganda. So I mean, it's funny that they're fans, and no offense to their fans, because I'm a fan of theirs. I'm talking about myself because I love that band. I have since Kazayo, since I got that back in 2005 or whenever. And there's been a couple people on Facebook and different places that are like, it's not for me. Tim deserves better. But it's like, music's music, man. It's all different. And I don't know. I mean, it doesn't upset me because I'm not writing this for Protest the Hero fans, but Tim loves it and Tim's in the band and I mean everybody digs it, So just try something different. One guy the other day said from a Protest the Hero like group on Facebook said, this is actually a cool song. And he like put like a weird like shrug emoji after it. I was like, well, yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate the compliment, the backhanded compliment.
Yeah, metal are purists.
Yeah.
But it's cool. I love the two scenes. I was a metalhead before I was a punk rocker. So
Yeah. So was
you know,
I.
and then like Propaganda, Strung Out, and Protest, they were the bridge, between those two scenes, where
Yeah.
Warped Tour collide a couple of bands like that. I remember seeing Protest the Hero for the first time at the Warped Tour and spoke with the guy, and they were a kid. They just want to have fun. So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure Tim is have that same spirit, after all those years of just having fun and not having the pressure of people that not making music whining about, he deserved better. Like he's not involved in protests anymore and just being in that band. It's just people are so narrow minded. You have to
Yeah.
keep the door open. And yeah, he grew up in punk rock. I spoke a lot with him about all those bands, and um, the Canadian scene, and the impact of it too. Over the years, we realize it now, but when I was a kid, people didn't realize that we have such a big scene, and people were embrace it around the world.
It's funny because I was talking to somebody the other day. I can't remember who it was, but I realized that probably 90% of the bands I listen to currently are Canadian. I mean, because the other day I was listening to the Weaker Thans, and then I
Yeah.
was listening, of course, City and Color. I think Dallas is amazing. And who else was I listening to? I was listening to Choke. Oh,
Yeah.
I love Choke, man, and just
Yeah.
I don't know, all the old Small Man Records stuff. Like I was listening to that. Like I just have a massive love for the Canadian scene, like the underground scene. And I just realized the other day, it's like, man, that's like 80% of my collection is Canadian bands. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah, and it's a really diverse scene too. When you look band like No Means No or
Yeah.
DOA, they're pretty different in their approach in punk rock, but it's what keep it interesting. And but yeah, I mean, right now it always this thing. When there's an explosion somewhere like California or New York or San Francisco or in London, after that it can take forever to have that explosion again. It happened elsewhere. It happened in
Yeah.
Sweden. Now I think Quebec have that. So yeah, it's always other place, and it's normal. That's where a movement is healthy and growing up.
I'll tell you that new, I was going to mention it with the Canadian stuff I was talking about. That new Belvedere record is amazing.
Yeah,
So good, man.
it blew my mind.
Yeah. I mean, I I like playing fast, but I got to put some dynamics in there. They're just like they'll beat your ass the whole time, man. I love it. And Steve and Casey and those guys are so great.
Yeah, Steven Rawls, it's such a dedicated, dude. It approach it like he will die if it's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's a total devotion, and the result of the new records. I'm really happy for them because I know they struggle a lot. Canada
Yeah.
is a pain in the ass to cover, and they went a lot in the States, but when they started up, it was rough because each time you go to the state, it's like a startup again, because it's so big to cover. So I'm proud that now with the internet and people know about Belvedere, and they released the records, that's kind of the masterpiece everybody were expecting for many years.
I tell you, man, I used to tour manage The Reason.
Oh,
And they were called Sewing with Nancy before they were called The Reason. I tour managed them for years. I've known those guys for like 20 years. And it was the first time I did like a cross Canadian tour.
okay,
Way back in the day. It was on when The Reason put out Ravenna on Small Man, like
okay.
2004, 2005. It was like the first. I'd been to Canada many times and played shows, but I'd never gone like Vancouver to PEI. You know what I mean? Like I'd never done that. And the drives, oh my God, I didn't realize it's like we played Toronto and then the next day or two we had to be in Thunder Bay and we had to drive north for like 10 or 12 hours. It was crazy, man.
Like, and there's so amount of time. There's nothing to see, absolutely nothing to see on the road. It's tough geographically. It's tough to cover, and that's why band go a lot now to Europe and
Yeah.
even in the States where you can do like pretty much more dates and being more healthy on the road than just losing 12 hour of gas getting to Thunder Bay and play in front of 55, 65 person,
Yeah. Well, dude, and I tell you on that tour, I got an education on Canada because we played every little town. We went to like Yellowknife and we went to Red
Wow.
Deer, Alberta, Medicine Hat, Alberta, like all these like places I had never heard of before. And it was a blast. And I got to meet a lot of cool people and play a lot of shows. But yeah, man, it's the drives are pretty brutal up there.
From your era right now, how's the local scene? Maybe before the pandemic, because everything stopped with pandemic, but before the pandemic, how was the local scene? Was
Well,
it healthy?
I live kind of in the middle of the country. I live close to Indianapolis, Indiana. We're about 3 hours, 3.5 hours south of Chicago. And there's always been a pretty viable scene here. I think more back in the day and then now there's a lot of heavy bands. Like
Okay.
lots of metal and some hardcore and like tough guy or whatever, like kind of those kind of bands. When I was younger, when I was coming like out of high school and I had my first band, there was more of a punk scene and there were a lot of punk shows, but it's also an area of the country they kind of call it the Bible Belt. So there's a lot of Christian like
Oh,
underground music shows. But the cool thing is here in Indiana, like even back to when I was young and starting out, they never like discriminated. You would be on a show with a Christian hardcore band and with a Christian punk band, and then you would be the secular punk band. Like we all just played shows together because we were just renting out Legion halls and like, shelters at a park and stuff like that. So you couldn't really be picky. You kind of, if you were in underground music, you had to just hang with everybody. It didn't really matter.
yeah. But I respect the scene. I mean, I'm not Catholic or anything. I
Yeah.
was born Catholic, but I don't
So was
see
I.
that religion is my favorite band. So it's
They're one of my favorites too, man. I got you.
but I spoke with band like much the same where their singer is really Christian and
Yeah.
everything. It's like I said, it's never to close door. It's really interesting to see their point of view and everything. And in the 90s, there was a huge um, uh, 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 with Tooth and Nail Records, there was
Yeah.
a huge scene, working on. I know the Craig brothers were not Christian, but they were playing a lot with
Yeah.
MXPX was one of them too. So yeah, it was people were kind of accurate of that scene, but we don't heard about that anymore a lot here.
Well, I think, not to offend anybody because a lot of those bands you just mentioned are friends of mine like Gunner and Mike from MXPX and all that. But I think that when you're young and you're in a band and you've been raised a certain religion, it just makes sense to kind of continue that on into your art that you make. And then when you become an adult, I'm not saying that you are not that religion anymore, but I think it's easier to separate the two.
Mm,
Kind of like Gunner, like he has his religion and his faith, but when you listen to much the same, it's not overtly Christian in its
yeah.
themes, So that's what I think it is. I think, when I was growing up, that was a huge thing because of where I live in America or in the United States of America, because it's a very religious area of the country, mostly Christian or different sects of Christianity. And that's why there was such a huge scene of those bands here. And those bands now, they're probably not even bands anymore, but most of the guys I knew that played in those bands, I don't know if they're still Christians or not, but I know that the music they make is not.
Yeah, yeah, like you said, when you're young and you embrace it, you must dedicate. Like when
Yeah.
we were young and we were screaming anarchy and doing that like with the circles everywhere we can. But when you grow up, like with the kids and everything, it's not the full-time part of your life now. You have other things to do, and it's just I think it's become more a state of mind there, a statement that you want to say to the world and everybody around you. So I think that the different. There still are, but they don't have to yell it out loud because they're feeling well with that, and it's a personal thing, I think.
Well, and I'll say it to anybody out there that still feels kind of like that isn't the case. They just need to listen to 88 Fingers Louie and listen to Punk Rock Rule Book, and they'll know exactly what we're talking about.
It's so true.
That
And I
song
can't
meant more to me as a 40-year-old than it did as a 20-year-old. And if anybody hasn't heard that, maybe you'll play it on your radio show. Listen to the lyrics that Dennis is singing, because when you become an adult, I'm still a punk rocker, but man, I have kids, I have a mortgage, I have a car, I have all like you can't be a gutter punk when you're 40. It doesn't look good on you. No.
I've got two kids actually,
So do
but
I.
my girlfriend got twins too, so we're four kid ears, like two adults. So yeah,
Wow.
it's something that you cannot do anymore,
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but that's another cool thing that I love about the scene, like you said, even in our core, when they were young, when you saw Matt Ball and Stick Front and everything, they were like really in your face, the attitude and everything. They were scared the shit out of me. Like just meeting them, I would be really impressed, but I did. And now they're some of them got kids, their
Yeah.
grandfather, and it's just their approach of life. It's so different. They still have that attitude, but we calmed down over the years, and it's kind of funny to see, how driving we were in our 20s, and the revolution slow down a bit when you're 40.
Well, I mean, the ideals that punk rock taught me, as far as, don't trust the government and think for yourself, and don't be an intolerant asshole. Like that kind of stuff I hold with me, and I will till the end of my life. But it's kind of sad when you see like a 40 or 50-year-old dude with Liberty Spikes that's drinking a malt liquor outside of a punk show. Like, just, I think it's almost more punk rock now to become a member of society and not be a bad person.
Yeah.
But I might get
Yeah.
a lot of shit for that. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's cool because in the 90s you were there with the explosion of the
Yeah.
Offspring, Blink, and Rancid and Green Day. Punk was in the market everywhere.
Yeah.
But thing after the 90s, there was the emo thing. They really tried to do the same thing with emo, but it doesn't last a long time. And
Yeah.
then you drop out all the punk rock band, and the scene was kind of not it was still going, but people were kind of leaving the scene, and that's
Yeah.
where I started up the radio show. Everybody was leaving it. Where the hell are you going? It's still good, but
Well, I mean, I do think it's kind of cool because, like, I have the analytics for my podcast, and it tells the ages of my listeners, and I have all ages listening, but there's that huge spike of like 35 to 45 male. And it makes sense, because if you go to a Descendant show, you're going to see little kids, you're going to see women or whatever, but you're going to see a lot of 35 to 45-year-old dudes, because the Descendants are a band that came of age kind of when we were all coming up, and I am a diehard Descendants fan, and I'm 43 years old. So it kind of makes sense when you look at that. But then it's cool to be a generational band, to where when I went, yeah, there you go. When I went to see the Descendants a couple of years ago, it was the first time I'd seen them in a while, and I was hanging out with Stefan, and I realized, I looked out and I was like, oh, there's a guy that has his kid with him, and then there's an older guy with him. It's like 3 generations of people are going to see the Descendants, and I just think that's amazing. I don't think that's sad at all. I think that's amazing that that kind of thing can happen. You can spread this type of music to your offspring, not the offspring, but your offspring.
it's fun because you said sad at all with the Descendants, so it's always like, oh,
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, dude, I love them as well. I had Scott Reynolds on my show a while back too. He's awesome. I'm getting ready to have Chad and Dave Smalley on there too. I want to have everybody that had anything to do with all on the program. So
I did. It was on my checklist. I did
yeah.
that, I think, a year and a half ago. I've got the 3 in a row. It was amazing. And they were like, I've got plenty of time, Eric. Ask all the question. It was something like an hour and a half and 2 hour with Chad, Scott,
Yeah.
and Dave. They're amazing. And then, yeah, there's so much to speak about all, and it's a really mysterious and interesting. It's all it's the band that it fascinated me. The Descendants, it blew my mind, but all it fascinated me. I want to understand why people didn't get into all as much, but now people know with the release of the documentary and everything. And that's what I'm so proud for the Descendants when they came back, with the 2 last records.
Yeah.
They were headlining every festival, jam pack, and they were getting what Blink got of ripping them in a way.
Well, dude, and I'll tell you, I collect vinyl, and all vinyl used to be a lot cheaper before filmage came out.
Yeah.
And now there's a lot of people wanting it, so the price is going up.
Yeah, even the SST records, which they own a lot, they're selling high price, and with the shipping in Canada, it's really it's rough on the budget because the
Yeah.
shipping cost same or equal as the vinyl, so it can get you to 80 to $90 just for a vinyl and a T-shirt. So yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, speaking of that, like, not to keep selling my own stuff, but we actually, our merch company that we use for the band is in Ontario. It's
Oh,
it's called Road Dog Supply. And
oh,
for the new record, the new 7-inch, we have a bunch of bundles on there with hoodies and shirts and stickers and whatever with the 7-inch. And we think it's cool because we have a pretty big following online from Canada. And so they don't have to have the outrageous shipping fees from Europe or the States or whatever. They can just go to firesaleisaband.com, order the new record, the bundles, whatever, and they'll ship right from Ontario.
Cool. I'm gonna go grab it right after the interview. It's so cool, man. If I can encourage you, I'm gonna be proud. And yeah, because shipping is a pain in the ass. Sometimes it just gets me, oh, I'm gonna wait till
Well,
the tour and buy a shirt or the vinyl when they came to town. I'm gonna save like something like $35.
well, that's the thing that's kind of hard in this climate now, like trying to
Yeah.
release music physically, because we could just do digital and whatever. Like we've all played in bigger bands, so people would check it out. But being on, Spam Records and them releasing a 7-inch, we're going to do the full length. We wanted to put something out first to kind of introduce the band, but it's kind of weird because you have to get these distros, and I wanted to make sure, like, Spam's got Europe on lock. We have a label in Japan, I think, that's getting ready to release it. We have a label in Australia that's getting ready to do some work with it. And then Spam is just opening up their own US store in a couple days. So we had Canada covered because with my podcast and the band, we use Road Dog Supply. Sarah that owns it is my merch director and art director for the podcast. So we just did everything through her for the band, and they were going to go with another label out of Canada to distribute it. But they're like, you guys have the channel. Why don't we just let you distribute it in Canada? And it's working out so far. It's selling briskly. If you do want one, I would act fast because once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah, and it's a good problem. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure you're gonna repress after that, but yeah, people go grab it physically. I know it's more important than ever. With the crisis with the industry of music, people those bands need you. They're gonna put gas in their in their vans, and they're gonna tour. That's what we need, and that's what we want. We want them in Canada, and of course they will come because they
Yes.
love Canada.
I love Canada. I can't wait to get up there, man. And I know that, Protest is from there. No Use and Face to Face have had huge careers up there. The Ataris had a huge following up there. So when we get there, I think the shows will go pretty well, hopefully.
Yeah, and the thing is, like you said, everybody knows everybody, and then
Yeah.
to see Matt again playing bass, it's gonna bring a lot of people. People will know what he's been through, and it's gonna be so cool and kind of surreal to see him back. Like you said, he's one of my favorite bass player too. Is incredible, and I know he loves metal. I spoke with him about Iron Maiden, about
Yeah.
Motorhead, about Venom or the old shit, and he knows his metal, and I respect that a lot.
The funny thing about Matt, every time he sends me a bass line for a song that we're writing, he'll say, I kind of went crazy. If you want me to tone it down, I can. Then I listen, and it's like the most mind-blowing Matt Riddle signature bass thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm like, I said, don't ever tone it down. I want people to, when they hear this, if they have no idea what band it is, I want them to go, I don't know what band it is, but Matt Riddle's playing bass. That's what I told him. So
Yeah, you guys gonna have a great time on tour.
yeah.
And thank you so much. I didn't warn you. You're stuck in a false contract with the radio show that you never signed. That doesn't really exist, but it's your show, guys. I mean, I respect what you're doing with the podcast a lot. We're doing the same thing. It's
Yeah.
not an easy thing. If it was easy, everybody would do that. You have
Yeah.
to I think it's a job for you have to be the nice guy. If you're an asshole or you don't let people talk, you really have to make a connection with the artist that you're on. But when you tour with those guys, it's cool to connect in a different way, and I'm sure that's what you were living with the podcast.
I mean, with the podcast, the one thing that people tell me all the time, like I've never really interviewed people before. I'm not a journalist or anything like that, but I just talk to them and ask them questions that I want and try to have a conversation as opposed to just badgering them with questions. And guys like Fat Mike and the people I mentioned before, like Trevor from Face to Face, when we get done recording, the one thing that they always tell me is that was actually fun. It didn't feel like an interview. And I'm like, that's what I want. I want it to just feel like two dudes talking. And that's kind of what we're doing right now. And I like the fact that you're kind of that same way. It's an interview. Yeah. I mean, everybody go out and please check out my band Fire Sale, but I also enjoy the whole art of just talking to someone about things that we care about, you know?
Yeah, and that's the thing I understood really fast when I started doing interview. They don't want to hear the same questions. It kind of
Yeah.
blow the thing up. It's just that what we have in common, we're two passionate people about music, and we involve in the same scene.
Yep.
So we have a start there, and then you work with that, and everything just go like a wave. It's like surfing. You don't have to force to hit the big wave. It have to came naturally, and that's how I take interview. And I don't see like you said, if I have Fat Mike or I have a local band here like Still Insane or whatever, it's just there's no for me, there's no small or middle or
Yeah.
big one. It's I will always take the time with everybody because it's like I said, it's a passion for something that don't bring a lot of cash. So Chris, thank you for losing money in the name of punk rock.
Hey man, I love punk rock. I love music more than anything in the world, and I'm just happy you wanted to speak with me today, man. I appreciate it so much.
It's a huge honor, my friend. Again, we repeat ourselves. People go grab the records, vinyl, CDs, shirts, or whatever you can. If you cannot afford it, go listen to it. It's everywhere on Apple Music, Spotify, or whatever. But learn the goddamn song and sing them live.
We will definitely make sure if you want the bundles or anything, or even to contact us or anything about us at all, it's over at firesaleisaband.com.
Krish, you're really generous of your time. I appreciate it. We're gonna do a special on you guys, of course, in a couple of weeks. But man, anytimes we're gonna be waiting for you in Quebec, Montreal, and all over Canada. And till then, have the time of your life and say hi to everybody in the band and kiss Tim for me because I love Tim more than the other.
I definitely will, man. And thank you so much for your time and for caring enough to have me on. And let's have you on my show too, man.
That will be rad. That will be my
Yeah.
pleasure. Seriously.
Well, keep
Thank
in
you.
touch and we'll make it happen. Okay.
Oh yeah, cool. I'm all in, man. Whenever you want, man. I've got the time.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it so much. And are you gonna play our track?
Hell yeah, man. We're gonna play the two single, and if there's another single, because I'm gonna air it in maybe 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks, is there something around? Just hit
There,
me
there,
up.
there will just be the two singles that are on Spotify, and I can send you whatever you need, man. Just let me know.
If you wanted me to play an exclusive songs, that will be cool.
I'll tell you what, we can do that, but it's gonna be a couple months. We're working on mastering and everything right now, so
Keep me posted. We can do that.
I will. Thank you so much for your time, man. This has been a blast.
Thank you. Same here, man. It was a huge honor. So,
Awesome.
whatever you drink, it's on me for tonight. And when we met in person, Mountain Dew on me. Oh, wow. Actually, you've got like something like 54 grams of sugar, man. It's
Dude, I've been on the keto diet, but my wife and I are cheating today, so I went and got a soda because I was tired.
it's like cheating big time. Like
Yeah.
I tried one a couple of weeks ago, but I drink like 2 or 3 times out of it, and I was like so sugar load, and I'm not used to have that amount of sugar. And like you see, I've got a lot of energy, so
Today's a one-time thing. I don't normally drink it, so
that's cool. But whenever you drink, it's on me. And when you come, guys, let's have a beer, a coffee, or whatever.
cool, man. It sounds great to me. Just keep in touch, buddy.
Thank you, man. I will keep you posted anyway.
Cool. See you, buddy. See you, man.
Hell yeah.